Most people
Do
cry.
most people cry?
Yeah. Yeah, usually one person. Not it's rare that both, but usually at least one.
Enlightened or whatever. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Corissa Bragg.
Yes, that's me.
I've been calling you my Tantra instructor. That I plan on coming to more. Is it funny? How does it feel seeing someone out in the wild that you've seen?
It feels okay. I was thinking about that before I came because it's kind of like seeing your therapist.
Totally.
But not.
Yeah, totally.
Tantra's a little weirder than therapy. But it feels fine. It doesn't feel like taboo or anything. It feels fine.
Yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to ask you to come, because I was genuinely well, I want to learn more about this. This is something I'm clearly interested in. That's helped. It's a new thing in my world that I introduced, that Robin and I first came together. But I wanted to learn more, and you're a wealth of information, and and obviously I was well, she's held me while I've cried. So how is it gonna feel when she walks into the studio?
Yeah, how does it feel for you for me to be here?
Honestly, fine. It feels great because I don't know. I'm over that. I don't know. I don't know. I would love it if I saw my therapist in the wild. I would love that. I don't know, because I think when you've already been past a threshold with someone so quickly, you're literally someone walks into you'll describe it as you do, but I'm going to just give the overview of what my experience is. You're walking in and you have to let go instantly. We haven't gone out to lunch. I don't know anything about you really. You don't know anything about me really.
Yeah.
But you're each person is there because you're there to help and be a vessel for healing, and this person is coming, and there's instantly, when you have to put those things, the formalities aside, because there is no formality. You're instantly breaking it. So no, I didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't weird me out. Maybe for a second I was how is it going to be? But at the same time, knowing that, it's we've already broken some sort of threshold without even really knowing each other. But you know me in a certain way. So it's super fascinating. Okay, so if how would you describe you and what you do? How would you describe let's start with Tantra, because I also want to know about you and how you got into this. Okay. What led you to it, but also what is Tantra?
So Tantra is a practice. It's
Tantra.
It doesn't matter. You could say either one. Probably neither of us are pronouncing it properly, but it's a practice that's very simple. It's about bringing your awareness and uniting that with your energy. But how you do that is complicated. So there's so many different ways. There's breath work, there's body awareness practices, there's rituals, there's body worship, there are mantras. It's kind of unlimited in how you can practice bringing your awareness into the body, into your energetic field. So it's really the practice, that's really what Tantra is the discipline of creating that union in yourself and in the world.
Be it whatever any of those, all of those things that you describe all fall under the umbrella that is the ecosystem that is Tantra.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you say a few of those things, you were, chanting. That's one of, but what would body worshiping be within that umbrella? What are some of those things that would fall under?
So,
making that connection, you know what I mean? Doing that work of Tantra. What are those specific, what does that look like? If someone were to be a fly on the wall and watch someone one-on-one with you, like what could that look like?
So when I'm working one-on-one with someone, it's a very intuitive process. Usually I start with breath work. And the reason why I start with breath work is because it's a really direct way for someone to get into their body. So even if it's just like deep breathing, but with consciousness, with awareness, you know, that helps. Breath is almost like a vehicle, right? So like you breathe and then that vehicle kind of takes you into the body. And if you're watching it the whole time, then you're watching the body too.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of goes, you know, and that can be the practice in and of itself. But then when you add some of the breath work where you're like clenching and releasing your muscles, then you're adding this like energetic buildup too. So then you have the awareness, you're in your body and you're building energy. Because, you know, you want to be aware of your body and the tension, but then you also want to start to understand energy because really, you know, existence, creation, whatever you want to call it, is energy. So to really start to understand that, you start with your own body and like the energy that you can build and control and feel in your own body. So that's like the first step.
To like disarm too, because I feel like when I like, you walk in, the breathing like has to happen because I feel like even that can take a long time, right? To like get someone out of their head, because you're laying there, and if this is like the first time you've ever done let's say that you're new to this, you know, like in our personal experience, like, you know, the first time I'm laying there, I was laughing. I remember laughing the first time because I want to be disarmed, but then like I can't manage to, like, you know, my conscious mind and my subconscious, like nothing's connecting, and it's like laughing at a funeral kind of a situation. And I'm like, okay, we're in this, how did we get here? And we're here and we want to be here, but what's happening? Okay, like this is going to be really great. I can't seem to let go. I'm on guard. You know, there are like all of these things. Like, is this weird for her? You know, why does this feel, why is this uncomfortable? And you start to, there's so many thoughts flying at you. And then eventually you're just like, you keep hearing your voice and you're like, laugh. You told me to laugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, and my wife was next to me and she was like, she was into it. Like she was in it and she wasn't giggly. And I had to like, I guess I had to let myself laugh so that I could sink in. But it took a second. Like, is there been an instance where like someone can't sink in to themselves, where you have to like be in that just breathing part so that they could let go of their day even?
Yeah.
For like an hour. You know what I mean? How long has that?
For some people, they don't ever get into it. I mean, for some people, there are too many blocks. But I want to talk about your experience a little bit, because it's so important. You know, we kind of walk around in the world and we have to be so contained all the time. And so then you finally start to feel into your body, and there's joy and there's laughter and there's tears. And like, that's what people experience when they start to pay attention to their body. And it's really cool.
It's really
but
wild.
Then everybody's like, oh, I'm embarrassed. Like, I shouldn't be crying. I shouldn't be laughing. But it's like, no, this is who we are. We should be feeling all of these things. It's like part of our humanity, but society is like pushes us into this thing where like it's not appropriate to be super emotional or expressive all the time.
Or it's like rude to be laughing at a course that you paid to be, you know what I mean? Like in front of this instructor, like there's that societal sort of programming even, you know, and then it takes the person saying like, no, laugh.
Yeah.
Of course, laugh. Yeah.
The permission is super important. But yeah, so some people can't really get to that place where even if I'm giving them permission or to feel really is like what the permission is, it's too hard for them. And hopefully, you know, those people come back and get more comfortable in those spaces, but not always. And especially people that sign up as a couple, you know, sometimes there's one person that can really get into it, and sometimes the other one can't, or maybe the other one didn't even want to be there in the first place.
Yeah, you know? It's tricky. And then when you get there, like the nerves that arrive when you know, like pull up, because it's so vulnerable. Like it's so vulnerable. But I would say like that's a different experience too. than like being by yourself, then versus experiencing something with another person. Like I think about, you do groups. Mm-hmm. And I've thought about it.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I can't be like that in front of, like, around so many other people, even if they're being like that.
Yeah.
Open. It's like
yeah.
It's a place I love to get to, but I don't know. The blocks, man. Blocks are real.
And group stuff does not look like the individual stuff.
No?
No.
Okay.
No. Like sometimes people will cry and like have some kind of release, but it's definitely not at the same level. It's the beautiful thing about the group is that everybody gets to feel the energy that's created when everyone's doing the same thing at once.
Okay.
It's not as big on like, I'm going to have this big
moment.
I'm going to release all this trauma in front of all these people.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens sometimes, but that's more
like
rare.
10 people all just like having total like openings of like self.
Can you imagine the chaos?
Oh my gosh, you'd have to like sleep for weeks after. I'd be like, I can't take in any more people's emotions. Okay, so you would like, so the breathing and then it moves into like, now that you're disarmed and you relax, let's get in tune and like build.
Yeah. So
like,
yeah.
Is it like a linear step thing, or are you just, is it everything's moving in different directions for you and you're just feeling and moving and reacting accordingly based off of where that person is at?
So it's two things, right? There's the structure, there's a system. So I'm looking into people's bodies, and the system I use is the chakra system. So here's an energy channel, and then along the energy channel there are different energy centers. And so that's kind of the system. So then I look into people's bodies, and then I kind of play intuitively. So it's like maybe they start to breathe, and then I notice, okay, there's a big blockage here, or there's a big blockage in the genitals. Like I just kind of use my intuitive sense, and then that's where I can't think. Really, I just have to kind of go into this feeling mode where I have to trust this. I have to trust this pull. I have to trust that I'm feeling this way because it's this person. It's like it's like improv, it's like very much in the moment. Wow. But I still have that system to hold me. So like the system helps me not have to think too much because I've practiced and worked with the system for so long. Then it's just ingrained in me. And on top of that system is where then I can kind of play and use my creativity and my intuition to see
so
into
within
people.
the system, when you're like starting and you're learning, and probably I would assume studying under somebody, right? Like,
yeah.
Is it like, okay, when you're feeling this type of energy, here are the different modalities you can use. You can start chanting. You can start doing like all the stuff, whatever that your energy work is, or like there are different things, there are toolboxes you can choose from. Mm-hmm.
My teacher just kind of like did whatever she wanted to do. She just, sometimes you'd show up to a workshop and we'd be learning like Sufi spinning, where we just like would spin in a circle for 30 minutes. Sometimes she'd have us chant for a really long time. Sometimes she'd have us just do like breath of fire, which is really uncomfortable and intense. And she'd just have us like sit in it forever. So you never really knew what you were going to get. But like through those practices and then repeating those practices over and over again with her or by myself, then they really start to become embodied and make sense.
Okay. I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So then what? Okay. How'd you get there? You ended up with a teacher, you ended up doing, but like what was pre-Tantra life? Like what led to that, and how, when, why?
I get to tell like the long story?
Yeah, I got
time. Great. So this is probably 2010. I was living in Cleveland, Ohio.
That's where Robin's from. Columbus, Robin's.
Oh, Columbus, cool. Yeah. So I was living in Cleveland, and I got a wild hair. I was a server at a restaurant, and I decided that I wanted to be a stripper. And I've always been a very curvaceous woman, and that's not usually seen in strip clubs. So I was like hell bent on getting into a club and like showing them that I could be a successful stripper, even though I was overweight. So I tried out. Nobody wanted me.
How old were you at the time?
I was like 2010, so like 23.
Okay.
So yeah, nobody wanted me. I finally got a job, and it was awful because it was like during the day. Nobody came in. So me and my girlfriend decided, we were like, let's pack up everything. Let's go to New Orleans. Let's try to be strippers in New Orleans.
Had you ever been to New Orleans? Like, what made you think, like, we're just going to go to New Orleans?
I had a friend that already lived down there who was a stripper. Okay. So I was like, maybe she can get us in.
It was like the insider. It was like the connections.
Yeah.
Like the connections. Okay.
Yeah. So we went down there. Same thing. Like, nobody wanted to hire me. Even though I had a friend there and like she could vouch for me, nobody wanted me. So we ended up working in like the shittiest strip club on Bourbon Street. It was this place called Show Bar. It was the oldest strip club on Bourbon Street, and it was just like it was very sad and depressing. I saw things like I had never seen in my life. It was just like, lots of drug addiction. I saw men do horrible things. I saw police officers do horrible things. Like, it was I was in it, like the bottom.
Was it sketchy?
Oh, it was so sketchy. It was so sketchy.
Felt borderline, like this is kind of unsafe. Like, this is sketchy. This isn't like a nice situation.
Very unsafe. But I stayed and did it anyways. And me and my friend cleaned up because like we were the only ones that looked like young and, like not addicted to drugs. So every time somebody would come in, we'd just be like, okay, let's work it. So we traveled around the country with our money, had a blast. So, it was so fun. And then I went back home to Cleveland after doing this for like a year. And we were like, okay, we're going to be strippers in Cleveland. Totally different thing. Like, being a stripper in New Orleans is like, I provide a service for people on vacation. It's very like fun. People are just having fun. In Cleveland, Ohio, it is not.
What's the difference? Is it just a little too real?
Yeah, like, and it's like this long-term manipulation. So like you don't have just someone for the night. It's like you have regular people, and you have to create this like story with them, and you have to have like strong boundaries, but then also deeply manipulate them at the same time. It's like,
yeah, it's wild.
It made me feel so bad. Every day I felt so bad. And I got a lot of pressure. I would like make the most money in the shift out of every dancer. I would sell the most drinks, but I got so much pressure from the staff to like lose weight. And I would go in these tirades. I'm like, I'm making the most money out of all these girls.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was really like super body shaming. Wow. It was terrible. It was terrible. But I was miserable working this stripper job, and my friend brought in this like hippie magazine at the beginning of our shift. And so I read it while I was like sitting in the strip club waiting for people to come in. And in the magazine, there's a story about my teacher. It was an interview with her, and it was all about how she overcame drug addiction, and she overcame religious trauma, all of these things that were just so powerful. And then like at the end talking about Tantra and how she had used sex to feel powerful. And I was like sitting in my stripper clothes looking around me, and I'm
did
like,
that resonate?
I might be doing that. I might be doing that.
A little bit resonated.
Yeah. So during that shift, after I read that article, a Reiki master came into the strip club, and I had to like, manipulate him to get money.
A
Reiki master, like
strip
this
club?
Old hippie guy, Reiki master, and he was like telling me all about his spirituality. And at the time, I was like not in, I was not in the spiritual world.
Was he like a Reiki master for real, or was he like, I'm performative Reiki master. Like, I look like this, but I wear beads and shit, and I talk about this shit to, like, you know, but
yeah, who knows? Who knows?
he felt like,
I don't know what kind of person he was. I mean, he was in a strip club during the day.
he's like a little weird.
But what really got to me with him was just like, I wanted to really talk to this person. You know, because I was curious, but I couldn't. I had to manipulate him, and I ended up spending all day with him, taking him to the private room and doing all this stuff. But I just felt so bad at the end of that shift, and I had read that article, so then I was like, I'm going to quit, and so I quit, and I started meditating. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I just knew that I needed to feel better. And then I saw that the woman that I read the article about was coming to town to do a training. And so I
oh wow,
bought a car for $200 because it was in the next town over, and I went and did one last week of stripping in New Orleans to pay for the training. And
that's rad.
Yeah, and then that was it. The moment I met her, I just felt this thing in my body. I was like, this is it for me.
And you were like, this is going to be my path, whatever. Like, did you know what it looked like? You just knew I'm interested. This is whatever this is for me. I'm just gonna go towards it.
It wasn't. Yeah, it was the physical sensation that I felt when I was around her. I did not understand, and I am a very curious person, and I had to continue to figure it out. Like, I was like, why do I feel this way when I'm around this woman? It's a sensation I've never felt, but it feels so deep inside of me, and every time I would do the practices, I felt really good. I didn't have any like powerful transformational experiences necessarily, but like it just felt right. I didn't know I was going to turn my whole life into this. But
what did it look like then, like on a practical level? Okay, so you like meet her, you're like, okay, I got to go to this teacher training, going to this thing, or I want to study from her. And then that ends. You're done stripping. Do you move? Like, when do you get to Nashville? What's between the end of like that chapter and then like getting into this whole world where you're now someone who's like doing that work and helping other people?
So I just kept studying with her as much as I could. She lived in LA, so I would have to travel there. I ended up going to India with her. Still didn't have any big, powerful experiences. I was just like following this feeling. Learned all this stuff. I kept taking in information, and then when I got home from India, I did one more training with her, and that's when I had my big like, oh, I get it now. Like, broke down crying tears, you know, like, oh, all this stuff is living in my body. And that's when she told me, like, you can start teaching now. Even though I was not ready to do that. I mean, I would teach some yoga classes and like sprinkle in a little bit of the tantric breath work. But I didn't even really take myself seriously as a yoga teacher at the time. And then I got pregnant.
I was going to say, do you have two?
Yeah, I have two kids. Yeah. So then everything, you know, I had all of these tools that my teacher had given me. And I feel like getting pregnant, having kids, like those tools kind of carried me through like life. You know, it wasn't just me like in my early 20s doing whatever I wanted. Then it was like life hit me, and my practice like kept me grounded. And then I moved to Nashville, and once I was kind of out of the thick of like parenting, I was like, okay, what am I going to do with myself? Maybe I'll teach yoga. And then I hosted a tantra workshop, and I was like, this is it. This is it.
How did you get to hosting? Like, you just said, let me try doing a workshop and see how it feels.
Yeah, I just invited people I knew and said I was going to teach. Before that happened, though, I had a friend come into town who teaches tantra, and I saw the response from him teaching. And when he taught, I was like, I know this stuff. I'm just not brave enough, you know? I know this information. I know how to teach this stuff. I don't know if I can hold the energy that he holds, but like I just didn't feel confident. But it felt like the right thing. So then I hosted a workshop, and then it was just like when I met my teacher and I couldn't stop learning from her.
Yeah.
Then it became like, I can't stop offering this. This is what people need. This is powerful. This is helping people. Like, I feel good when I'm sharing this stuff. So I just kept putting myself in extremely uncomfortable situations, kind of like I'm doing right now.
Is this like super foreign for you? Like,
yeah. I never do stuff like this.
Nah,
I never do stuff like
this. Good. It's so funny. That's so interesting to me, because to me, to hold space for complete strangers, where you're like, you don't know what's going to come up for people, right? You don't know if they're going to take it seriously. Then if they do take it seriously and lean in, and then if they are able to get to a comfortable place where they're actually connecting with themselves, and crazy shit goes down. Like, you know, like emotions that people won't like share in front of their spouses or therapists or whatever, because it is this physical, this visceral aspect to it. There's this like somatic aspect that's not just talk therapy. It's like, your body doesn't lie.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen. Things are just going to happen if you let it. To me, to invite someone into my like space, and how do you make someone that comfortable? I would be so nervous to get someone basically emotionally naked. Like, I don't know if I'd be able to I guess this is my version of it, but like, or songwriting or whatever, but it's a whole different beast. So I thought, like, that's interesting that this seems scarier to you maybe than like that does.
Yeah, definitely.
I wonder what about it is like.
Well, it's just like talking, you know, because I mean, and I feel like I feel more comfortable in that space where, okay, we're not talking. Like, I'm guiding you.
You're good at feeling.
Yeah.
Less talking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, talking, I have trouble. The feeling. Just like bottle it up. That's so radical. So, okay. So question, do you know within like the Tantra world, because you took it seriously, you studied under someone, how does it work in that world? Like, are there Tantra people walking around who like don't know what they're doing? Like, who is checking and balancing this world? Because when you're dealing with this space, and people are so vulnerable, when there's the wrong person in the mix with ill intentions, or with no intentions, but maybe like not enough information to be doing this with people, like, how does that work within this world?
Yeah.
To keep people like safe emotionally and like physically, and because it is the Wild West. It seems like you just have to go off of your gut and off of what you feel when you're with someone.
Yeah. It really is the Wild West right now with this kind of work. You know, there are schools that teach that are more legitimate, but then even if you come from a legitimate school of teaching, it's really like,
bless you,
the person, you know, the up to the person if they're going to be ethical, similar to a therapist. In India, it would be frowned upon that I would call myself a Tantra teacher, because in India, it's this very, you know, there's a lineage, there's a guru, and then underneath the guru are disciples. And you don't get to teach until the guru says you're ready to teach. And so Saul, my teacher, she got permission from her guru, and I studied with him in India. And she gave me permission to teach, but it was more informal. So it wasn't like I was going to her guru and getting his blessing. Like, it was like, she was my teacher. She told me that I could teach. And a lot of people that were her student, they don't necessarily call what they teach Tantra. I feel really pulled to use that word, but it definitely isn't like by the books, traditional. And when you're working with sexual energy, I mean, it's always going to be that the wrong people are going to be drawn to holding that kind of space. And I don't know, and I get this question so often from people that come and see me that are visiting from out of town. I really cannot vouch for any other teachers, other than the ones I personally know, because you really never know if somebody's going to honor that energy or if they're going to do something with it that's in their best interest and not in their clients.
I mean, I've even seen enough even gurus, in India, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even when people have power and access to emotion, and so it can be like very scary place in the Wild West. But even without this sexual energy part of it, just even like the world of mindfulness, right? Like the world of influencer spiritual world, it's like anyone can say anything they want.
Yeah.
And it's even scarier to think that like it's in this like tantric space too, which people are, but you just, all that to say, I don't know, what should I don't know. I didn't second guess it because I was like, legit, like the second I was like, yup. You know why? Because I'm like, what would make me have a million red flags is like you're very like discreet, but you're like express yourself online, you like share what you do, but you're not like here's my business and here's why you should, you know what I mean? Like you can tell that this is like your passion and your life and you're something that is a part of your like fabric of your life. And it's very, if you like, I sussed it out really quickly and felt super comfortable. But like, if someone has no clue, where does someone begin? If they don't know someone or know how does someone find a tantric instructor? Just gotta go and like make sure you don't get like
I think like get recommendations from people, do a lot of research, use your gut. But it's hard because I feel like this work for me, especially working with a lot of people, they don't have an intuition yet. They don't know how to access their intuition.
Right.
So it's really hard to say, oh, just follow your intuition. Like you felt really comfortable in my space, but people who have power and know how to access power inside of themselves have the power to make people feel comfortable, even though they're not safe or trustworthy.
And pair them with vulnerable people who are lost.
Right.
And confused.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, that's why I get so, that's kind of why I called the podcast Enlightened or whatever. Because it's like a little nod to like, it's like a performance of something that actually is like a really sacred, private thing, like the whole spiritual world, like realm of it's become like an industry.
Yeah.
Not like it's become an industry. All that to say, not that this is the commentary on like my bitterness about whatever spiritual world stuff, but okay, what happens next? You disarm someone. What can happen? Like people cry.
Mm-hmm. People cry. People also become very aroused because I'm helping to build energy. So they do the breath work, right? And sometimes they become aroused during the breath work. Sometimes they don't. And then I get people onto the massage table. And generally what I do there is energy healing. So like I'm activating the person's energy. And if we're thinking about the chakra system, where I start is in the root and the sacral chakra, which is the perineum, the genitals. Like I'm not touching those places, but I am using the energetic field to like bring out that energy and activate that energy. And so for some people it just feels really relaxing, but for some people it feels really erotic because that is like the area in our body where we feel eroticism. So it's very normal. it's hard, I think, for some people to allow themselves to feel that because we have so many stories about eroticism and what that means, and to feel that erotic energy around someone who's holding this healing space. It's very complicated, but the place that I like people to be in is for them to really feel held with love, like I'm holding you with love. This is a safe place for you to express that erotic energy. And then that erotic energy starts to build. And then hopefully, not always, I move it up to the heart. And it's not even necessarily me moving it. It's like me directing their awareness that this is already moving. This is already going. Like, this is already a part of you.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of facilitating the awareness to be into the energetic body. So sometimes that takes a few sessions, for the energy to, it's almost like a circle, like it's moving, but sometimes it's just kind of moving down here.
Yeah. I would describe my, like, the experience, because then we moved to it's like a raised, like a table, almost like you were there, but at a certain point, you're not. Mm-hmm. You're there, like, your voice is there, but you're not an intrusive presence. Like, it's a guide. And then at a certain point, there's just no, the awareness just shit. You're so in your own body. And then you'd get little reminders. I'm in my body and I'm trying to, but then when there would be a moment of stuckness, there's this like little reminder. You're there, but you're like not. And then I kind of like in a dream, and you just kind of like hear, and you guiding or chanting or moving energy. And for whatever reason, it I don't care how skeptical anybody is, but like, it just works.
Yeah.
Like if you let it, and you like, you had an awareness of where I was at. Mm-hmm. When I was stuck or when I couldn't, whatever the thing was, why is specifically this like erotic energy, like why is this specific type of energy healing? Why is erotic energy working with it, learning how to focus it, learning how to feel it? Why is that healing versus doing it with any other type of energy movement in your body?
So I have a couple different theories. Really, the answer is I don't know. But I have theories around why.
Yeah.
So I think that when we talk about energy, a lot of people in our culture don't actually know what that means. But people do understand sexual energy. They do understand sitting next to someone that they're attracted to and like feeling this invisible force. Mm-hmm. They do understand that like when they're in a sexual situation, this kind of magical thing happens where they feel into energy outside of their body. But they usually don't understand energy with power or with love, like, or with truth, like that they don't feel that energy outside of themselves as much. Sexual energy is just very powerful. So it's not that the energy is actually sexual. It is the way that we understand energy.
It's been oversimplified. It's almost been like it's like primary colors. It's
right.
Like it's this thing.
You're right.
When it's actually so much more. It's so much more.
Yeah. And
nuanced.
And it's how we understand it. So as that moves through our body, we can start to understand the different dimensions. So we can start to feel like, oh, this energy feels powerful, or I feel the energy of love. But the other part of it is that it is very pleasurable to feel our energy. And so it's hard to separate it from eroticism because we associate pleasure and eroticism together, and like that is the life force, the creative energy. It's pleasurable. It feels good when it's coursing through us and running through our body, but it is all of those things. It's all those pieces and parts of our humanity.
I like that. Makes sense. I can wrap my brain around that. Like it has just been mislabeled. Yeah. Misdiagnosed, oversimplified.
Yeah.
It's kind of a very American thing too.
Yeah.
Just very almost unable to like carry the like expansiveness of like, and it's kind of prude, you know, it's like, or it's just like Esther Perel talks about like eroticism, like an erotic life as it pertains to like having life force, like having a vivaciousness for life, being turned on by life, not walking around with like wet panties and a boner. Like that's not what that literally means. It literally means like, when are you most the essence, you know what I mean? Like the stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And like, yeah, the erotic is not just, we're not talking just about our genitals. Here.
Yeah. But for some people, when they start working with the energy, that is all they're talking about. And that is the only place they can get to. And that's the only place they can experience that. And that's okay. You know, like that's a good starting point.
We can bleep this, but like, was I one of those?
No, you got energy running through you.
Wait, really?
Yes, your energy is moving. Yeah.
It's not just like
No. I mean, you are able to allow it to go everywhere. It needed help, but like it was moving. Yeah.
So wild.
Yeah.
Do you go to someone to do that?
Yeah, so there's a local guy named Wayne that does it, and he's really, really great. He's been doing this way longer than I have, just specifically the energy work part. So I would say, I don't want to speak too much about him, but like, just because I don't know his whole background, but I have more of like the traditional tantric Indian background, where he has more of like the shamanic energy healing background. So he's amazing though. And I need to go. It's been a while.
How often do you try to go for like personal upkeep? Like, is that part of your, do you have things, because you are in the world of body work and healing, like, do you have your own personal, like, like I know I got to do this once a year. I know I got to do this twice a year.
Yeah. So once or twice a year is usually when I see him.
So do people come to you every week? Do you ever have people go, like, is that or is this the kind of thing where it's like, because it's intense.
Yeah.
It's like you can go and you don't need to go for maybe a minute.
Right. Well, and like maybe if you were on some kind of long retreat, like weeks long, where you don't have to work, because there can be a lot to unpack after a session. It can take a while to like really integrate the energy. It can be kind of emotionally unsettling. So it can be really difficult to come every week. If somebody could, I mean, I've had clients who will book in advance and they'll be like, okay, I'm going to pay for 4 sessions. I'm coming every week. And almost always they end up moving the next appointment because they're just like, okay,
I can't.
I don't want to do that again.
Yeah. It's because you kind of feel like you want to do it again. You're like, that was insane. I don't know how to describe it to anybody, you know, but like, I want to do it again. So then like the natural human nature in us wants to like keep doing something that feels good, but then at the same time it's also so draining.
Yeah,
it's so emotionally draining, but it also feels so good. I kind of got like high on the work of it. You know, like you come home and you're like, I fucking did that. You know, like I like, you know, I disarmed, you know, and you just want to keep doing it, but it does. I haven't been back in a minute because it's like, need a second.
Well, and when you have the young kids and like you have a busy life, it's really hard to integrate. And really the value is like you do feel really good afterwards sometimes. Sometimes you feel like like you just ripped a part of your body out. But the value is like the awareness. So when you have those big emotional experiences, then being fully aware of like, okay, this is my pattern, or this is the thing I hold on to, or this is what I keep throwing myself into, you know, like having that full awareness of the roots of the emotions and the tension is that's when, you know, life kind of starts to change, because then you can be like, oh, I'm getting into this pattern again. Like, I can feel it in my body. Like, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Or I'm suppressing myself again. You know, like, it's starting to learn yourself in a way where, you know, you can, I don't want to say like, because I feel like I know myself really well at this point, but life's still really hard. So I don't want to say like, it'll make your life better. You're just more aware of everything. It doesn't necessarily make your life better.
Right. I get what you're saying, where it's like, it doesn't, well, it's the difference between like a toddler who doesn't know what they're feeling, so they don't know how to express themselves, versus maybe a kid who's a few years older who now has some words. It's like,
right.
It's not like they're not still frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
But at least now they know how to tell you.
Yeah, that's a very good way to
So
describe
kind
it.
of like that, maybe, where, like, the bills are still coming, and the ba-ba-ba, and the this and the that, and the bullshit of whatever. But at least now you know how to sink into yourself and realize that that's just all fucking shit. And, you have tools, and when you have tools, you're free.
Yeah.
Like, really, like, you're not trapped in your own, you don't need to be stuck.
Yeah.
You can, like, I'm big on it lately, is my work to do, is being like more autonomous and having more agency.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so simple. You don't need to ask. You can just do, like, if you want something, you can go do it.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying no. Like, you can go, as long as you're not hurting anyone or yourself, or, you know what I mean? But you can, you know, if I want to go out right now and go buy something crazy at Walmart and come, like, I can make choices for myself. And that's like a tool I've recently learned. That's like, if I can make choices for myself, then I don't need to ever feel stuck, because I have the power.
Yeah.
I'm in control. I have power to make choices. And I feel like that's like with Tantra, any sort of mindful thing, you're not stuck because you now know you have choices to make.
Yeah.
Because you have stuff you can use. You're not just going to fucking, like, when I learned I could breathe. Do you remember the first time someone was like, taught you that you can just breathe, like, through something when you started meditating or whatever? And like, you're like, when you have nothing, you have control over nothing else. Mm-hmm. But you're like, if I'm at rock bottom in this moment and I can't grasp for anything, oh, I do have control. I can breathe.
Yeah.
And that is like, if that's all you have, that's everything.
Yeah.
Right? Because, like, in many scary moments, that's all I've had. And to remember that you can breathe is insane in that moment, right? When you're like, oh, I can have something to focus on. This is powerful.
Yeah.
And it's going through my body.
Yeah, and I think that is the practice for me. That is the thing that, like, keeps me grounded, and it's the thing that it's like the way that I can kind of touch that feeling of unconditional love, or that feeling of, like, the ecstasy of of energy, you know?
Yeah.
Is the practice of having all these tools where I can process this crazy thing that we're in, you know, like the world, which is hard for me. Like, and it's probably why I'm so drawn to this, and it's become my life, is because I need tools. I need those things to, like, make sense of everything, and to process and to let the tension go out of my body. Because as long as we are living a life, like, we're not a monk up in the mountains, you know, like, we're living a life, we are loving other people, like, we need the breath, we need a practice to, like, clear the shit out of our bodies, because it builds up, you know?
We don't live in the boonies off grid, you know what I mean? Like, we do. We live in the world.
But I bet those monks have some monk drama too, I bet.
Oh my God, can you imagine the monk drama? Like, oh my, I think you're right, that a lot of the people who are everybody I know in my life that I know who is in this space, my aunt being one of them, she's she's studied mindfulness for 25 years. She practices with tons of people and studies many different people. And she was like my first person who like really like introduced me to this whole, she lives in San Francisco. Like she's epic. I do. And then like I found myself coming to learning about, you know, I came to meditate. I mean, in college is when I got really claustrophobic on airplanes. There was like an era of my life I couldn't fly because I had a panic attack once on an airplane. And then it became a self-fulfilling prophecy every time I got on an airplane. So in college was my like first introduction into like working with my breath, not in a hippie space modality like way. It was in a clinical sense. It was like with someone, it was like with my therapist, and she was teaching me how to breathe and different ways of breathing. And it was very like therapy world. It wasn't like an energy and breath, and I wasn't at like a hippie retreat kind of a thing. And I just like really like learned it, like the basics, because I desperately needed to, and I didn't want to take medicine. And that kind of like sent me, I feel more and more pulled to be learning about things that are going to help me and heal me because I need it. I need it. And then because I'm in it, like then I'm in it, and now it's becoming becomes a fabric of your world. But I feel like everybody that's drawn to it, it's because they needed it themselves.
Yeah.
And then you just become immersed because you're like, I want to keep feeling better in my experience as a person.
Yeah. And it's very empowering to know that like, oh, this thing, you know, that's just a part of my body, that's just a part of who I am, is now actually healing me. You know, just like my breath, you know, it kind of opens up this world of endless possibilities. But I think that there's also a downfall of that too, is like, I don't know if you've noticed this, but and it's kind of nice that you got to learn this outside of the spiritual community, because then in the spiritual community, I feel like people then think everything can heal you, like everything in nature can heal you, you know, and then it becomes like another trap. And that's really the thing.
Traps.
There's so many traps. There's so many traps in spirituality, because you start to develop this awareness, and then you can take that too far.
I'm going to be this thing. Now I'm this thing, and now I'm this person, and now I'm get wrapped up in the thing, and like the ego of, I don't know, it's a whole thing. It's like a whole ick world sometimes. I think about it. It's like wild.
Yeah, and I mean that relates to the thing you were talking about earlier, like who can you trust in this work?
Right.
And it's hard when there are so many traps on the spiritual path that you have no idea this person calling themselves a spiritual practitioner could have fallen into any one of those. That's why I really like to watch cult documentaries.
I'm obsessed.
But it's fascinating because I really feel like
cults.
Most people these cult leaders start out with good intentions.
Totally.
And then there's some like thing that snaps along the way, some trap that they fall into and they can't get out. And like the power is too intoxicating, or the money or the sex or whatever.
Yeah.
And it fascinates me.
Yeah. Cult documentaries, do you have like a fave cult that you're like super into or fascinated by?
I don't have a favorite
Not
one.
a favorite cult. Obviously, we don't like cults.
Yeah.
But
I think the one that made me have the biggest crisis, like almost like spiritual crisis, was the NXIVM cult. I don't know even know.
NXIVM, the sex one?
NXIVM, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't say
it. It was in many parts, right? It's like a long form.
Yeah. That one was just because the language that the guy would use for all the people are so common in all the spiritual communities. Like he took this idea of, you know, you want to be in an uncomfortable space. That's where learning happens. That's where growth happens. And he pushed that as far as he could. And I say some of those same things in my sessions, you know, like you want to be in this space where you're slightly uncomfortable. But it's like,
he was like branding people though.
Well, that's where it went eventually. Yeah. That's where he ended up.
Yeah.
But it was like, Yeah. So it just, it makes, it really, like, those documentaries help me. They really do.
They create you're like, oh, okay, this is where this person lost themselves. This is where they got lost in the sauce a little bit. Yeah. Oh God, I hope nothing bad comes out about, like, you know, I don't know, like Ram Dass or something. Like, I don't think it ever would. Like, he's R.I.P. But, like, you know, there are good. That's why, like, your teacher can be anybody. That's the thing. It's like, your teacher doesn't have to be some schmancy guru from an ashram and blah, blah, blah. It can be, you know, your next door neighbor. You know, like, it could really be anybody.
Yeah.
That there are, when you feel that special, potent connection, like, that's it. That can be, I don't know. There are people in this world that are meant to be, you don't have to be this, like, thing. It's some of the most influential people in my world, like, probably don't even know how influential they were because probably only met them a few times. You know what I mean? Like, it's anybody can be your teacher.
Yeah. Well, and part of awareness is dismantling that hierarchy in general, you know? So when we start to, like, think about people in a hierarchy, it messes with that whole idea that there really actually isn't one. And
Right.
And feeling that on a, like, deep level too, like, really embodying the no hierarchy is fascinating.
Does your family know about your job, and do they understand it? Job feels so like, what is it called? Like, reductive. Didn't mean, like, but
it's okay. It is my job.
It's like, I guess the only word we have.
Yeah.
I'm
lucky that my job
practice.
is also my life path and my practice and, you know, all of those things and my creative outlet too. Yes, my family knows what I do. I'm very open with them. I was raised atheist, so
whoop, whoop. Do they understand it? Do they understand or care to understand or, like, learn about? Is that something that?
No, my dad ashamed. Like,
he can't.
He will refer to me as a cult leader. Partly as a joke, but partly as, like, kind of a dig, you know, like.
He thinks it's a little woo-woo.
Yeah, very
totally
woo-woo.
witchy woo-woo BS. He doesn't buy in.
He doesn't even really want me to talk about it around him at all.
Totally. Okay.
Yeah.
Checked out. Got it.
He's like a atheist, like a fundamentalist Christian, right? But an atheist, like a fundamentalist atheist. Like, there is no other way. There's only atheism. And if you're not atheist, you're stupid.
Got it.
That's
You can be an atheist and be spiritual and be and understand that there's a separate conversation. But yeah.
I sometimes he'll say things like that and I think we're getting it, but then other times my mom understands a little more. I don't think she exactly knows. I think she gets it. Like, she's had energy work done. She's hip in that way.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. She's a business lady though, so she's always, like, pushing me to try to make it more of a business, but
and you're like, this is taking away taking away the. It's not what it's for. It's not what it's for.
This doesn't scale.
This doesn't scale. It scales when, you know, like, your impact's made, I guess, and people are like, yeah, obviously coming, and you can do bigger workshops, but, like, it's I guess, but, like, and your kids, do you talk to them about how do you approach, you know, like, their fish dies, you know, their little fishy dies, or their dog, you know what I mean? Like, how do you approach those conversations around when kids start asking about heaven, hell, God? Are we spiritual? Are we talking about energy here? Are we talking about nature?
So, yeah, I don't really, I talk to them about what I do, but not much, like, not in a, because it's mostly, like, philosophy, and I don't really talk about that. Sometimes, though, I will teach them energy stuff because they've watched Star Wars. Like, they know
it's
about
rad.
Jedi stuff. So I'll have them, like, put their hands up and, you know, they'll put their hand here. And I'll be like, okay, so do you feel anything? And just to start to develop energy awareness. And we do mindfulness practices. But I really want it to be their own path. Like, I don't want to put any of my spiritual philosophy or my beliefs onto them. I will, if they ask me, like, what do you think happens? I will tell them, and I talk to them about what other people think. And my co-parent is a Buddhist, so he, you know, it's atheism, basically. Like, when you die, and that's it. So they get exposed to different things. I'm sure it's very hard for them because they're young and they do have to make sense of death, and I'm not handing them any kind of exact way. Right. So my younger son believes in heaven, he says, and my older son is just like, when you die, you just rot in the earth.
But it's beautiful. It's not steeped in fear.
Yeah,
you know, or it's not. It's open for. It's open and endless. Mm-hmm. And that they know that they can constantly continue to be molded, and what a beautiful thing that we can even think about these things. Yeah. And like, that's a nice way to, you know, or maybe they start getting into the stars and you can start, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a really cool, I mean, I only have a 2-year-old right now, but things, you know, we're starting to think about, like, when those questions come up. But I think, I think being honest is really all you can do. Like, you know, like, maybe, and like, these are what some people, do you tell them about, like, do you guys do Christmas? Yeah, well. Or is it that more of like an American holiday? And yeah, the Christmas, there's no spirituality around Christmas. Yeah. My family celebrates solstice. You know, with the atheism. So that's like, we're celebrating the shortest day of the year. Like, that, you know, makes sense. Did you grow up celebrating the solstice? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What does that look like? It looks like Christmas, but we call it solstice. That's it. So cool. There's a tree in the whole thing? Yeah. Same. Everything's the same. Oh, with Santa. It's literally just called solstice. Yeah. Well, except the solstice monster. There's a solstice monster that my dad made up, and if you're bad, the solstice monster eats you, and it's just Frankenstein with the Santa hat on. And it's like an internal family thing. Yeah. But it actually works out. That's like, cool. Now that I have my own kids, it's like, well, now we have solstice, and then we go to the grandparents for Christmas. So it's kind of nice that we have our own thing. That's pretty cool. Yeah. I've never heard of anybody celebrating the solstice. Yeah. Until today. That's rad. That's like a nice substitute. Yeah. For Christmas. It works. Said the Jew. I like it. Do you have any sessions coming up? Like, did you have anyone tonight before you came? Yeah, I had a full day today. Yeah. What is a full day? How many people can you? 3. 3 is energized. 3 is good. 3 is good. And then I start getting tired. Couple sessions are easier, so I can do more of those because it's more about their energy interacting and me just kind of holding the space rather than me really facilitating like a big energetic release. Were they good? Do you feel good about the sessions you had? Oh, yeah. Very good. They were good. They were really good. Sometimes I do not have good sessions because sometimes people come and see me because they think that I'm like a tantric masseuse, even though it does not say that on my website. So they come in like they're getting a tantric massage, like they're going to get a hand job. And, you know, I'm like, no, that's not what I do. And I'll be like, you can leave and I'll give you a refund because I don't even like dealing with it. Because do they say something? How do you know when when does it turn where you know that that's what they're there for? Well, we always talk at the beginning. So, you know, I'm just like, tell me why you're here. And they'll be like, well, I really like to be massaged. And I'm like, well, I don't massage. That's not what I do. And like, they'll be like, well, let's do this anyways. I'm already here, you know, let me try this. But I can't
nothing happens because they're waiting for like something sexual to happen, but nothing sexual is going to happen.
Yeah,
so
they don't get it. They don't get
into it at all. So those are sessions where like, but as long as people know what they're getting into, the session usually goes pretty well.
Do you have any funny stories?
Funny story.
I know it's like a serious thing. You don't want to like, it's like people are being all vulnerable, but like there's got to be like, I mean, you're setting your, I mean, like, it's such a unique situation.
Oh, I do have a funny story. So I had a couple, like 2 weeks ago. Oh, this was so embarrassing.
We need context. Hetero?
Yes, hetero couple. And so they sat down and, I was like, tell me a little bit about your relationship. And so they were like, well, we're really hoping to bring a third soul.
I knew you were going to say that.
But they said a third soul, into our relationship. And so I was like, oh God, because sometimes people are like, they think I'm a prostitute, right? They think that. So I'm like, I really hope they don't proposition me. So I was like, oh, so you're like looking for like a throuple situation. That's exciting for you guys. And they're like, no, we're trying to have a baby.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh my God.
Third. Did you what did you do? Was it awkward?
Yeah.
Was it funny?
Because they were not they were just, I could tell that they felt kind of hesitant about being there. And, like some people are kind of like, oh, I'm pulling into someone's driveway. Everything's unmarked. This isn't an office. And then they come in and sit down. And I'm like, oh, you guys are looking for a throuple. So I'm sure that they were sketched out. And they're like, oh, my God, what did we just get into? Because then I looked like the creep.
Third soul.
Yeah.
That's a funny way. I would have thought third, too.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
I would have thought a throuple, too.
Thank you.
A third soul. I mean, that's really funny. But the sesh went well. They got over it, and they sunk into their feels.
Yes, it went well.
Did they look at each other in the eyes for 3 minutes straight?
They did.
Did they cry?
They did. I don't remember if they cried. Probably. Most people cry.
Most people cry?
Yeah. Yeah, usually one person. Not it's rare that both, but usually at least one.
Is it usually, okay, we need context. You sit people in front of each other. Mm-hmm. They sit on, one person sits on top, one person on the bottom, facing each other. Mm-hmm. Breathing together. Mm-hmm. And then there's a part afterwards, right? It's after, I think, where you stare in each other's eyes.
No, the sitting together and holding each other and breathing together happens at the very end. So the eye gazing happens right after the breath work.
Eye gazing.
Yeah.
Eye gazing is so intense. Why?
Yeah. Well, because it's so vulnerable.
It's so vulnerable?
And the idea in the tantric system, right, is like the eyes are connected to the heart. And so, but honestly, I don't really know. I think the eyes are really expressive. We associate a lot of different things with people's eyes, like their depth, their soul, the way that we feel safe and comfortable with someone. So I think just that sustained feeling of vulnerability and connection, and you just have to sit in it, and you can't run away from it, and you can't escape it, is terrifying and triggering, and people usually are super uncomfortable, and then when they finally oh, I'm not gonna die, it's gonna be okay, that's kind of when the magic happens.
So wild.
Yeah.
What a cool thing. You do a really cool thing.
Yeah, I feel that way. I love
How long has it been? How many years has it been since this has been your world?
My world, this is all I'm doing. It's probably 2016.
Wow.
Yeah. But I started sprinkling it into yoga classes 2013.
You started you were teaching yoga?
Yeah.
Yeah. Casey, do you want to do a tantric session?
I've never done a tantric.
Okay, I'm gonna send you to Corissa. I would love. There's just so many people that I'm like could so benefit from just being, even if it's just to be like, it kind of feels like you're jumping into cold water when it's so foreign. And I think that is just an important part of being a person anyway, just like kind of freaking yourself out.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck am I doing here?
Yeah.
And then it ends up being epic and like really special. But yeah, there's quite a few people I want to like send your way.
Send them to me.
I
I'm
will.
ready. I'm ready.
Do you have any things coming up, or well, I don't know when we're gonna put out this episode, but like, I don't know. Do you have anything we can, when we edit it, I can like put it here.
Okay.
You can send it to me.
Yeah.
Is that what yin yoga is?
Yeah,
like
yin yoga,
longer?
it's, you just hold it for like 2 or 3 minutes. Hold the pose.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
That's long. That's a long time.
It is. It
to
is.
hold a yoga pose.
It is. And it can be very emotional because that also will create a somatic release. You know, if you're like focused on relaxing your hip for 2 or 3 minutes, can be.
It'll get to you. Yeah. I heard the hips carry a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
Is that,
yeah.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
It's a true thing.
That's the when you're doing the hip openers, the crying comes. The crying
That's what I've
happens.
heard.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, before because I wanted you to like say your like all your social stuff, your social media and your website, but can you go through each chakra
Yeah.
and talk about them?
Yeah.
Because I genuinely don't know about all of them. I only really know about mine.
Okay. Yeah. So there's the root chakra, which is the perineum, which the perineum is the space in between the anus and the genitals.
Also, we can call that the gooch.
Yeah, or the taint. Yes.
I mean the taint. Yes.
There's many terms.
The perineum's the scientific term.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So that's the root chakra. That's really about safety. So like being grounded, connected to the earth. We store a lot of like survival stuff in there, fight or flight. You know, if you had like a really chaotic childhood, you know, and that's really where the term tight ass comes from. Because it's like you're always, if you're scared or stressed, like you're always clenching your butthole, you know, and like
That's true.
then you can kind of tell the type of person that's clenching their
Tight
butthole.
ass. Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm talking to my friends, I'll be like, that person's got butthole problems. I just know it.
They've got stuff. They've got unresolved stuff.
Yeah. So then there's the sacral chakra, which is our genitals, our lower belly. That's sexual energy, but also creative energy because it's really the same. And then, the subconscious, like the watery depths. That's the sacral chakra. So we hold a lot of emotion there. And then the navel, this is the power center. So fire, our sense of self, purpose. This is a good place to like reconnect to your body, reconnect to your like feeling of who you are.
Is that kind of if you're like tightening your abs? It's like that area?
Yeah. So like people can have stomach issues if they're like constantly holding tension there.
Okay.
But you want to be strong there because that strength here supports the softening of the heart. So like that's like, and it's symbolic, right? Like if we're strong in our power, if we have good boundaries, good discernment, then our heart can feel safe and soft and open. And the shoulders are soft and the upper back is soft. So it's like makes sense in the body, but then it also makes sense symbolically. Then the heart, love, trust, joy, happiness. And then the throat chakra is truth. So really the way that I understand this chakra is like being able to speak on all of these different places, on our survival, on our sexuality, on our power, on our love, like really being able to express it. And then the third eye, intuition, intellect, and the crown is where we connect to all energy.
Wow. Cool. I had some throat chakra shit that happened. It was good. I can. This. It's not woo woo. You gotta tell your dad. It's not woo woo.
Yeah,
He's out.
There's no helping him.
He can't. He's done. He's done.
His body is like this all the time.
Oh my God.
My poor dad. He'll never watch this.
Chris's dad. You're awesome.
He knows. He knows.
Where can people find you?
So I have a website, which is just my name.com. And then I have Instagram. I like to share a lot of stuff about Tantra. I like to share, funny things about Tantra and sexuality and
yeah, you have awesome memes. Your meme game's really funny. It's like spiritual memes.
I love to also make fun of the spiritual community because
so
everybody's taking themselves too seriously.
Yeah, exactly. It's awesome. I love it. And do you do stuff out of Nashville, outside of Nashville, or if people want to like work with you, they should do so when they come to Nashville?
I would love to travel outside of Nashville. I go back home to Cleveland sometimes and teach workshops there. I've had people who've traveled here and they say, like, I want to bring you to my town. And I'm like, I'm ready. You just let me know.
Bring Corissa to your town.
Yeah. But mostly the way people work with me is individual sessions at my studio in East Nashville and then couple sessions. And then I'll do, maybe 1 or 2 workshops every month where it's a group situation.
Oh my gosh, thanks for coming.
Yeah. That went by so fast. I was like, oh my gosh.
I don't know. How long have we been? Sometimes I never know. We could talk all night.
Yeah, that was great. That was fun.
Nah,
that was way more fun.
Woo!
That was not a...
See you next time. Thanks for coming.